Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for joining us again.
Always good to be back.
Today, we're going to be looking at Ether, chapter 10.
Oh, yeah, Ether 10.
It tells the story of the Jaredites.
Right, the Jared.
Who came to the Americas, before the Nephites.
Mm-hmm.
And their history is filled with all these ups and downs.
Yeah, for sure.
And what we're focusing on in this chapter is this cycle of righteousness and wickedness.
Yeah.
And how that really impacted their society as a whole.
It's a pattern that we see over and over in the scriptures.
Yeah.
Societies that really embrace righteousness tend to flourish.
Right. Yeah.
But when wickedness takes root, things start to unravel pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And Ether 10 gives us some really tangible examples of this.
Yeah.
We start with a man named Shes.
Yeah.
And he's tasked with rebuilding after this devastating famine.
Yeah.
And verse 1 paints a pretty bleak picture.
It does.
It says, "And there began to be a great curse upon all the land because of the iniquity of the people, in which they did dwindle in unbelief and wickedness, from year to year, even to the destruction of nearly all the people of the land."
Wow.
It's hard to imagine trying to lead people out of such really dire circumstances.
It really highlights the importance of, resilient leadership.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just about, strength. It's about remembering where you came from. She's in verse 2, remembered the words which had been spoken by the mouth of the Lord.
Okay.
He looks back at how God delivered his ancestors.
Yeah.
Brought them across this great deep.
Right.
And he uses that as a source of strength and guidance.
Yeah, it's interesting. He doesn't just try to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
He taps into that spiritual heritage, that legacy of faith.
Yeah.
And uses it to rebuild, and it seems to work.
Yeah.
Verse 2 tells us that he began to build up, again, a righteous kingdom.
Wow.
He establishes laws, strengthens families, and encourages people to return to God.
His leadership isn't just about restoring physical things, like cities and farms.
Yeah.
It's about restoring the spiritual foundation of society. He seems to understand that true prosperity flows from righteousness.
That's a great point. But even with righteous leadership, there are always challenges.
Sure.
Look at Shes' son, for example.
Okay.
He rebels.
He does.
Causing division and strife within the kingdom.
Wow.
And then, tragically, Shes himself is murdered by a robber.
Oh, no.
All because of his wealth.
That's awful.
It's a reminder that even when we're striving to do good, we're not immune to the trials and temptations of life.
It raises an interesting question, though, doesn't it?
What's that?
What does it mean to be truly prosperous? Is it just about material wealth?
Right.
Or is there something more?
Okay.
It seems like despite his good intentions, might have stumbled in this area.
Okay.
His wealth perhaps became a distraction, a source of vulnerability.
Yeah. That's a good observation. It makes me think of those scriptures in 3 Nephi chapter 13.
Okay.
Where the Savior warns about laying up treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal.
Yeah.
It seems like Shes' story kind of echoes this warning.
It does, and it sets a fascinating stage for what happens next, because Shes is succeeded by his son Riplakish, who takes a very different approach to leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Very different. Riplakish, he seems to go against everything his father stood for.
Real.
Instead of, remembering his heritage.
Right.
He indulges in all sorts of excesses.
Yeah.
Verse 3 tells us he had many wives and concubines.
Okay.
And he did lay up much treasure in gold and silver and precious things.
Oh.
He really focuses on, amassing worldly possessions.
Yeah, it's like he's completely forgotten the lessons his father tried to teach him. He sees leadership as an opportunity for personal gain.
Right.
Not for serving the people.
Right.
And as you might expect, his reign takes kind of a dark turn.
It does. He imposes heavy taxes on the people, according to verse 5.
Wow.
And uses that money not to benefit them.
Right.
But to build many spacious buildings.
Okay.
And even an exceedingly beautiful throne for himself.
Oh.
He's completely consumed by this desire for power and luxury.
And that's not all. He also builds prisons, as mentioned in verse 6.
Oh, wow.
To punish those who can't or won't pay their taxes.
Oh, my goodness.
It's like he's ruling through fear and oppression.
Yeah.
Completely disregarding the well-being of his people.
His actions really highlight the dangers of unchecked ambition.
Yeah.
When a leader prioritizes personal gain over the needs of the people, it creates this imbalance that can only lead to trouble.
And that's exactly what happens after 42 years of enduring his really tyrannical rule.
Right.
The people finally revolt.
Yeah.
Verse 8 says, "And it came to pass that the people did rise up in rebellion against him. And there came a great war upon all the face of the land, insomuch that Riplakish was slain, and his descendants were driven out of the land." It's a pretty dramatic downfall.
Riplakish's story is a cautionary tale, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows what can happen when we allow these worldly desires and ambitions to consume us.
Right.
He had the potential to be a great leader, to build on the legacy of his father.
Right.
But he chose a different path, and it ultimately led to his destruction.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if he ever looked back and regretted his choices.
Right.
Did he ever think about the different path he could have taken, the legacy he could have left?
We can only speculate.
Yeah.
But his story definitely serves as a warning to us.
Okay.
It reminds us to be vigilant in guarding against, those same temptations.
Right.
To seek wisdom and humility in our leadership roles.
Yeah.
And to always remember that true greatness lies in serving others.
So after Riplakish is overthrown, his descendant, Morianton, manages to seize power.
He does.
Taking control of the land.
Morianton, he's a bit of a puzzle, isn't he?
Yeah, how so?
He seems to understand the importance of easing the burdens of the people. At least initially, verse 11 tells us he did do justice unto the people. Perhaps he saw the mistakes Riplakish made and tried to learn from them.
It sounds like he's trying to break the cycle of wickedness to establish a more just and equitable society.
Right.
But there's a catch, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, Morianton has his own struggles.
What do you mean?
The same verse goes on to say that he did not do justice unto himself because of his many whoredoms.
Oh, wow.
It seems he was a man of contradictions, capable of righteous leadership in the public sphere.
Right.
But failing to live up to those same standards in his personal life.
It's a good reminder that true righteousness starts with ourselves. We can't lead others to a place we haven't been ourselves.
It's about aligning our inner and outer worlds,
Right.
Ensuring that our actions reflect our beliefs.
Yeah.
Morianton's story shows what can happen when there's a disconnect between the two.
After Morianton, we see a series of kings.
We do.
Kim, his brother, then Levi and Coram. Each one has their own story, their own struggles, and their own impact on the Jaredite nation.
Yeah.
It's almost overwhelming to try to keep track of them all.
It is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway here is that the cycle continues.
Okay.
We see these moments of righteousness.
Right.
Where leaders rise to the occasion and guide the people towards prosperity.
Okay.
And then these moments of wickedness
Right.
where selfishness and greed lead to decline and destruction.
Yeah.
It's a pattern we see repeated throughout the scriptures and even throughout our own lives.
It's like this constant battle between light and darkness, good and evil.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's up to each individual to choose which side they will fight for.
And that brings us to the reign of Lib.
Okay.
A king who seems to have truly grasped the importance of righteous leadership. Yeah, Lib's reign stands out as a time of incredible progress and prosperity for the Jaredites.
Yeah, verse 19 tells us that he did that which was good in the sight of the Lord.
Oh, okay.
And it's not just some abstract goodness. It translates into tangible benefits for the people.
Yeah. Under his leadership, they overcome some serious challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Verse 19 mentions the poisonous serpents being destroyed. This must have been like a huge relief, allowing them to, cultivate the land without fear.
Right, and they really seem to embrace innovation in industry.
They do.
Verses 20 through 23
Okay.
describe them building cities, expanding their territory, and developing these sophisticated trade networks.
Wow.
They're working with all sorts of metals, creating textiles, and really maximizing their resources.
It's like they're firing on all cylinders,
Yeah.
both spiritually and temporally, and it's all tied back to their righteousness and their willingness to work hard.
Right. Verse 28 says, "And never could be a people more blessed than were they, and more prospered by the hand of the Lord."
That's amazing.
It's a powerful testament to what can happen when a society is aligned with God's purposes.
It is. But even in this time of abundance, there's a sense that, things can change in an instant.
Right.
That cycle of righteousness and wickedness we've been talking about, it doesn't just disappear.
And unfortunately, we see that play out with Lib's successor, Hartham.
Right. Verse 30 tells us that after 24 years of ruling, he loses the kingdom.
Wow.
And served many years in captivity, yea, even all the remainder of his days.
It's tough.
His lineage even faces captivity for generations.
It's a sobering reminder
Yeah.
that righteousness requires constant vigilance, this daily recommitment to God's principles.
It does.
So we've seen the highs and lows of Jaredite history.
We have.
The faithfulness of Shez,
Yeah.
the excesses of Riplakish, the complexities of Moranton, and the prosperity under Lib.
Right. It's fascinating.
It's a tapestry of choices and consequences.
And through it all, I think this central theme emerges.
Okay, what's that?
The impact of individual choices. Whether it's a king leading a nation or a parent raising a child.
Right.
Our decisions have this ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves.
Like we read in Alma 34.32, "For behold, this life is the time for men to prepare to meet God. Yea, behold, the day of this life is the day for men to perform their labors."
Absolutely. Every choice matters.
Yeah.
Every action contributes to the kind of legacy that we leave behind.
And it's not just about, avoiding major sins.
Right.
It's about those everyday decisions.
Yeah.
The small acts of kindness or selfishness. The moments where we choose to follow God's promptings or go our own way.
It's those seemingly insignificant choices that can accumulate over time, shaping not only our own character, but also influencing the lives of those around us.
It's both empowering and humbling, isn't it?
It is.
Knowing that we have that much agency, that much responsibility for shaping our own destinies
Yeah.
and impacting the world around us.
It is, but we're not alone in this journey. We have the scriptures to guide us, the Holy Spirit to prompt us, and the atonement of Jesus Christ to provide grace and forgiveness when we fall short.
So as we reflect on the stories of these Jaredite kings, let's ask ourselves, what kind of legacy are we building?
Right. Are our choices leading us closer to God or further away?
Are we using our time and talents to make a positive difference in the world?
Remember, even small acts of righteousness can have a profound impact. As Ether 12.34 reminds us, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass.
Yeah, let's strive to make choices that will not only bless our own lives, but also bless the lives of generations to come.
That's it.
Thank you for joining us today on this exploration of Ether Chapter 10.
It's been great.
We hope you've gained some new insights and maybe even felt a little inspired to examine your own choices and the legacy you're creating.
Absolutely.
And if you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations like this.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back.